October 2024. Northern Davis County, Utah. Remote marshland, miles away from anything that feels civilized. Just days earlier, a massive storm had rolled through the area. The aftermath was everywhere. Snapped tree limbs, thick layers of heavy mud, and floodwaters pushed way past normal levels. Now dozens of people are moving slowly through that swampy terrain. Not civilian volunteers, not locals. These are heavily equipped National Guard personnel. They've divided the area into sectors, methodically combing through the reeds, checking unstable shorelines and shallow inlets. Their assignment is painfully specific. Locate anything that clearly does not belong in this natural landscape. During another sweep, one of the search teams spots a large, dark object in the distance. It's wedged deep inside thick reeds, rocking heavily with the movement of the water. Several team members step into the swamp in full gear, secure the object, and drag it back onto solid ground together. What's sitting in front of them is a massive rooftop cargo carrier, a standard plastic storage box, the kind families usually mount on top of a minivan before long road trips across the country. The manufacturer's logo is still clearly visible on the lid. Investigators are called to the scene immediately. Right there on the shoreline, officers force the soaked cargo box open. Inside, there's no camping equipment, no luggage, no spare tire. The container is completely empty. But as investigators examine the inside walls and the bottom of the box, they notice multiple dark brown stains spread across the plastic surface. Crime scene specialists test the material on site using a chemical reagent. The reaction is immediate, and there's no room for doubt. The cargo carrier contains a massive amount of human blood. Someone had clearly tried to wash the plastic clean, but the biological evidence had already soaked deep into the porous material. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're breaking down a case that's anything but typical. A story where the image of the perfect American dream hid some deeply disturbing facts underneath. Before we start piecing together the full timeline of this investigation step by step, take a second to support the video. Drop a like, leave any comment down below, and check if you're subscribed to the channel. That support seriously helps push these videos through the algorithm, and for me, it's the biggest motivation to keep digging through reports, documents, and case files to build investigations like this one. Huge thanks to everyone supporting the channel. You guys are the best. Now let's get into the evidence. The blood-covered cargo box recovered from the reeds immediately becomes the center of the investigation. Samples are rushed to the lab for DNA analysis. Not long after, the police database returns a 100% match. The blood belongs to a person whose disappearance, just weeks earlier, had already sent law enforcement agencies across multiple cities into full-scale panic. The missing man was 51 years old. Before he vanished, he lived in the upscale Cottonwood area just outside Salt Lake City, raising 3 young sons and daughters while leaving for duty every single morning. But Matthew wasn't some ordinary office employee. Law enforcement was searching for a veteran and active member of the 19th Special Forces Group of the United States Army National Guard, one of the elite units known around the world as the Green Berets. Matthew's job involved some of the toughest assignments imaginable, missions that demanded extreme endurance, discipline, and mental control. And somehow, a highly trained, physically capable soldier like that had simply disappeared from his own home without taking his belongings, his wallet, or even his keys. Investigators now faced the question that would define the entire case. How did a rooftop cargo carrier from the family vehicle end up dumped in a swamp miles away from the house? And who could have overpowered someone the government had spent years training to survive under almost any conditions? Military personnel do go missing, but cases like this almost never happen during peacetime, and definitely not from the backyard of an expensive suburban home. So to understand what led to this crime, we need to rewind to the very beginning. Matthew and Jennifer's story starts back in 2012. At the time, Matthew was 39 years old, born in July of 1973. He already had years of military experience behind him, along with a calm and relatively drama-free divorce from his first wife. Jennifer, born in February of 1982, grew up in a comfortable part of Cottonwood and remained extremely close with her parents, Thomas and Rosalie. They were deeply involved in their daughter's life and regularly inserted themselves into family matters. The relationship moved fast. By 2014, Matthew and Jennifer officially got married. On the surface, they looked like the perfect match. Matthew carried himself with the reliability and structure you'd expect from a military man, while Jennifer projected the image of a warm, family-oriented stay-at-home mom. The couple purchased a home worth well over $1 million. Over the years, they welcomed 3 sons and daughters into the family, born in 2013, 2017, and 2019. To everyone around them, they looked like the definition of the perfect American household. Matthew continued building his military career through the National Guard, while Jennifer handled life at home. Fellow service members visited the house regularly. Neighbors saw weekend barbecues, smiling family photos, and a perfectly maintained lawn. Nobody suspected anything was wrong. And honestly, that's usually how these stories go. People judge others by the version presented to the outside world. The Johnson family maintained that polished image for years. But later, when investigators started digging through bank records, court filings, and financial documents, that social illusion collapsed almost instantly. Behind the walls of that expensive home, the reality looked nothing like the picture their guests had been shown. By the summer of 2024, the 10-year marriage officially started falling apart. In July, Jennifer files for divorce. Almost immediately, the process stalls because of major disagreements over 2 issues: division of the expensive property and custody of their 3 sons and daughters. Neither side is willing to compromise, so the couple is forced to continue living under the same roof while the legal battle drags on. That situation quickly turns toxic. Matthew starts finding reasons to spend less time at home. As an experienced military serviceman, he increasingly chooses to stay overnight at the National Guard barracks instead of returning to the house. In conversations with fellow soldiers, he openly admits that the atmosphere at home has become unbearable. According to several colleagues, Matthew even says he's genuinely concerned for his own physical safety during confrontations with Jennifer. By August, the conflict moves fully into the courtroom. Jennifer files a request for a protective order against her husband. But after reviewing the couple's messages and documented interactions in detail, the magistrate reaches a very unexpected conclusion. The judge officially denies the request. Court records later show the magistrate noted that Jennifer herself regularly initiated arguments, insulted her husband, and displayed aggressive behavior throughout the marriage. At one point, the judge reportedly makes it very clear: if anyone in this relationship appeared to need protection, it was Matthew. At the same time, investigators uncover another major piece of the story. Jennifer had allegedly started seeing another man behind her husband's back. According to the investigation, the two regularly met while Matthew was away on duty or staying overnight at the military base. The identity of this man has still not been publicly disclosed by investigators. But very soon, he would become a key figure in unraveling the entire case. Then there's the financial side of all this. Matthew carried a life insurance policy worth $500,000. And according to the documents, Jennifer was listed as the sole beneficiary, meaning that if Matthew suddenly disappeared or was found deceased, Jennifer would potentially gain full leverage in the custody dispute, complete control over the family assets, and access to a massive insurance payout. And honestly, if you look through enough true crime cases, you start noticing the same triggers over and over again: money and family disputes. Legal battles drag on for months. Dividing property through the courts becomes exhausting. And eventually, one side can start convincing themselves that removing the other person would solve everything at once. So what do you think was the bigger motive here? The $500,000 insurance policy? Or the escalating custody fight over the sons and daughters? Let me know what your theory is down in the comments. I always like seeing different perspectives on cases like this, because as we move into September 2024, the tension inside that house is about to hit a breaking point. Late September 2024, Matthew suddenly stopped showing up at his National Guard unit. For someone with his level of military training and years of service, missing duty without a serious explanation is practically unheard of. At first, leadership on the base is told that the soldier took emergency leave. The explanation given is that his father had supposedly suffered a sudden stroke and needed constant care. But days pass. The approved leave period expires, and Matthew never returns to base. Fellow service members try calling him, but his phone is unreachable. Every call immediately goes straight to voicemail. By September 28th, several concerned colleagues contact law enforcement and request a welfare check at the soldier's home. Officers reach out to Jennifer and ask her to come in for questioning. She calmly arrives at the Cottonwood police station and gives investigators her version of events. According to Jennifer, she hadn't seen her husband since September 20th. She claims that earlier that evening, the couple had a serious argument. After the confrontation, Matthew allegedly told her he needed a break, said he would be gone for exactly 1 week, and specifically instructed her not to contact him during that time. Jennifer tells detectives she simply respected his boundaries and waited for him to come back. And honestly, doesn't that level of calm sound strange? Her husband is missing. He's not reporting for duty. His phone is turned off. Yet she never contacts authorities, never calls local hospitals, and never appears genuinely alarmed. Detectives immediately notice the same thing. On paper, the situation could still look like a typical disappearance following a domestic argument, but investigators decide not to waste time. Patrol units are given alerts and begin systematically searching surrounding neighborhoods, gradually expanding the radius around the Johnson family home. Very quickly, they get a break. A short time later, Matthew's personal vehicle is found abandoned on the side of the road in a nearby residential area. The car is locked and nobody is inside. At that point, investigators dramatically shift their strategy. Detectives obtain access to the digital records connected to Jennifer's cell phone activity. When analysts begin reviewing the location and billing data, they uncover something deeply suspicious. On September 21st, exactly 1 day after Matthew's reported disappearance, Jennifer's phone shows a long trip far north into Davis County. Then suddenly, the device completely disconnects from nearby cell towers for several hours. For a significant stretch of time, the phone essentially disappears from the network altogether before eventually reconnecting later. Investigators immediately begin pulling surveillance footage from traffic and security cameras along the estimated route of Jennifer's drive north. After reviewing dozens of hours of video, detectives land on footage from a local self-service car wash, and what they see there immediately grabs their attention. The cameras capture Jennifer's family minivan parked inside one of the wash bays. She's seen meticulously cleaning the interior of the vehicle with an unusual level of intensity. Every surface, every seat, every floor mat. Investigators later note that Jennifer appears especially focused on the rear cargo area, scrubbing the inside of the van as if she's trying to eliminate even the smallest trace of evidence. By itself, a trip to a car wash isn't a crime. But when investigators combine the abandoned vehicle, the cell phone going dark in a remote northern county, and this almost obsessive deep cleaning of the van's interior, the picture starts looking far more disturbing. At that point, detectives realize they're no longer dealing with a simple domestic dispute. Investigators prepare to request a full search warrant for the mansion. But before that happens, the case suddenly gets a massive push forward from a completely unexpected source. While detectives are preparing to meet with a key witness who had remained in the shadows, the primary investigative team receives authorization and officially enters the Johnson home. At first glance, everything looks normal. The furniture is neatly arranged. The floors are spotless. The house appears calm and organized. But the moment crime scene specialists walk into the master bedroom and spray chemical reagents across the floor and bed frame, an entirely different picture suddenly lights up in front of them. Under the bed, investigators discover large areas of washed-away biological evidence. Human blood had soaked deep into the wooden slats beneath the mattress, and even now, detectives can still smell a faint but sharp odor of bleach lingering in the air. Someone had clearly spent a huge amount of effort trying to scrub the room clean. But experienced investigators know biological traces are almost impossible to completely remove with ordinary household chemicals. Then they notice another major detail. The original mattress is gone. Immediately, detectives shift their attention toward Jennifer's closest relatives. Thomas and Rosalie are brought in for questioning. The older couple confidently tells investigators they did stop by their daughter's house shortly after Matthew disappeared. According to them, they stayed less than an hour, picked up a few belongings, and then left. At first, the story sounds believable, except neighbors tell a completely different version of events. Multiple witnesses confirm the couple wasn't there for 1 hour. They were inside the property for more than 5 straight hours. And according to those witnesses, they spent most of that time doing an intense, deep cleaning inside the house. Then investigators uncover even more. Rosalie had personally purchased a brand new mattress to replace the missing one. And when detectives request access to her cell phone for forensic analysis, they discover the device had recently been reset to factory settings. Every message, every call log, every location record, completely wiped. Honestly, this is the part that always stands out in cases like these. People think they can outsmart the system with rushed cleanup attempts, deleted data, and gallons of bleach. But in reality, those frantic actions usually become giant red flags for investigators. The harder inexperienced people try to cover something up, the more attention they draw to themselves. Do you really think they believed replacing a mattress and resetting a phone would somehow make all of this disappear? Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm always interested in hearing different opinions on cases like this. But the biggest mistake of all comes from Thomas. During another conversation with police, he suddenly says, "I never even went into the room where the incident happened." Detectives immediately look at each other. Because up until that exact moment, nobody had ever told Thomas there was a crime scene inside the house. Investigators never mentioned blood. They never mentioned the bedroom. And they definitely never mentioned where the incident may have taken place. With one careless sentence, Thomas accidentally confirms that he already knows far more than he should. At that point, the circle around the family starts tightening fast, and now investigators only have one thing left to do: hear the story from the person who had stayed hidden the entire time. On October 2nd, 2024, investigators receive an unexpected phone call. An unidentified man asks to be connected directly to the head of the investigative division and insists on a completely confidential meeting. His voice sounds nervous, shaken. It's obvious he's genuinely frightened by whatever he's involved in. This is the same secret affair partner we mentioned earlier. At some point, the reality of the situation becomes too serious for him to ignore. Realizing exactly what he may have been pulled into, the man decides to step out of the shadows, reveal his identity, and fully cooperate with law enforcement. Inside the interview room, the witness doesn't come in with vague suspicions or theories. He places actual digital evidence on the table: saved text messages, hidden audio recordings of phone conversations with Jennifer. Then he starts walking detectives through everything that happened roughly 10 days earlier. According to his statement, on September 22nd, Jennifer personally came to his home. He says she appeared emotionally charged and unusually talkative, almost like she needed to unload everything she'd been holding in. During that visit, Jennifer allegedly confessed to carrying out the crime against her husband and openly described the steps she had taken afterward. But investigators are especially disturbed by another detail the witness mentions. While speaking with Jennifer face-to-face, he noticed large, fresh bruises on her body. The marks looked consistent with heavy physical strain. He directly asked where the injuries came from, and according to the witness, Jennifer answered without fear, hesitation, or visible remorse. She calmly explained that the bruises happened while packaging and transporting Matthew's body. She also allegedly admitted she received cuts and scrapes while cleaning the house and attempting to remove evidence from the bedroom. Detectives immediately begin analyzing the audio recordings provided by the witness. One particular call stands out. The recording captures a conversation that happened after their in-person meeting, when the witness was still trying to process everything he had heard. Jennifer's voice on the recording sounds shockingly calm. At one point, she asked him not to see her as a monster and begs him to remember the positive version of her he used to know. The man, clearly overwhelmed, tries to reason with her. He reminds Jennifer that she took the life of a real person, the father of her sons and daughters. Then comes the response investigators would later describe as deeply disturbing. In a completely flat tone, Jennifer allegedly says, "He wasn't a person anymore. He wasn't Matt anymore." Now honestly, put yourself in this guy's position for a second. You start an affair thinking you're dealing with the usual problems inside somebody else's marriage. Then suddenly, the woman shows up covered in bruises, talking about transporting the body of a combat veteran. At that point, survival instinct probably kicks in fast. The witness likely realized that if Jennifer was capable of carrying out something this calculated against her own husband, there was no guarantee an inconvenient witness would be safe either. And that fear is most likely what sent him straight to investigators. Those recordings and direct statements completely transformed the investigation. What had previously looked like scattered pieces of evidence, the cargo carrier dumped in the marshland, the suspicious trip to the car wash, bleach inside the bedroom, the behavior of Jennifer's parents, suddenly locked together into one clear sequence. For the first time, detectives fully understand the likely motive, the timeline, and the entire cleanup operation surrounding the crime. And using that growing mountain of evidence, investigators begin reconstructing the events of the night of September 20th, minute by minute. Now let's go back to the night of September 20th and reconstruct what investigators believe really happened, step by step. Using forensic evidence, cell phone data, surveillance footage, and witness statements, detectives finally piece together the scattered fragments into one brutal timeline. That evening, Jennifer takes her 3 sons and daughters out of the house and leaves them with her parents, Thomas and Rosalie. In doing so, she makes sure the property is completely empty, except for her and Matthew. The couple is now alone inside the mansion. Later that night, both of them begin drinking heavily. Investigators believe a large amount of whiskey was consumed, and at some point during the evening, the exact situation Matthew had feared for months finally explodes into the open. He learns about Jennifer's secret affair. A massive argument erupts inside the house, the final breaking point in a marriage that had already been collapsing for months through divorce filings, custody disputes, and constant confrontation. After the exhausting fight, Matthew eventually goes upstairs to the bedroom. He lies down on his side of the bed and falls asleep. According to investigators, Jennifer waits until her husband is fully unconscious. Then she retrieves a 9mm handgun. Detectives believe she walks into the bedroom, approaches the sleeping veteran, and fires a single shot directly into his head. There is no sign of a struggle, no indication Matthew had any chance to defend himself. Investigators conclude the gunshot ended his life almost instantly. Blood soaks deep into the mattress, seeps through the fabric, and spreads across the wooden bed frame underneath. What happens next becomes the center of the entire cleanup operation. Investigators believe Jennifer immediately begins systematically destroying evidence. First, she completely destroys Matthew's cell phone, eliminating potential digital records and communication history investigators could have traced later. Then she goes outside and removes the large rooftop cargo carrier from the family minivan. Jennifer drags the oversized plastic container into the house and carries it upstairs into the master bedroom. According to investigators, she places Matthew's body inside the cargo box. But the weight quickly becomes a serious problem. As she attempts to move the container downstairs, the heavy plastic case repeatedly slams against the staircase, walls, railings, and wooden steps. Detectives later believe this is likely how Jennifer received many of the bruises later noticed by the witness. At multiple points, she reportedly struggles just to keep the container from tumbling down the stairs entirely. After getting the box downstairs, Jennifer allegedly returns to the bedroom and begins aggressively cleaning the blood-covered area using strong household chemicals and large amounts of bleach in an attempt to remove biological traces and mask the smell. With significant effort, She eventually loads the improvised container into the rear of the family minivan, but investigators believe she knows leaving immediately would create an obvious trail. So before driving north, Jennifer first stages another part of the scene. She gets behind the wheel of Matthew's personal vehicle, drives it into a nearby residential neighborhood, and abandons it on the side of the road to create the impression he may have voluntarily disappeared. Then, alone in complete darkness, she walks back home. Only after that does she return to the minivan. Investigators believe Jennifer then drives far north beyond the city limits into a remote part of Utah. Somewhere in that isolated area, detectives say she digs a shallow grave and conceals Matthew's body underground. Afterward, she takes the blood-covered cargo carrier to the marshlands in Davis County and dumps it directly into the swamp water, hoping the mud, flooding, and storm damage would hide the evidence permanently. I read about cases like this all the time, and honestly, the mechanics of what happens afterward always stand out to me. Just think about the sheer physical effort involved here. First, carrying out the shooting at point-blank range, then moving an enormous amount of weight alone through the house, cleaning floors with harsh chemicals, relocating vehicles, digging into cold ground in the middle of the night with nobody around to help. That takes focus, control, and an almost disturbing level of composure. Does that really sound like a sudden emotional breakdown or a split-second accident to you? Because personally, when I look at this timeline, every step after the gunshot feels calculated with frightening precision. Let me know what you think about that level of self-control in the comments. Now let's move to the final chapter of this story and the official outcome of the investigation. The arrests made in October 2024 triggered a long and complicated court process. Jennifer was formally charged with 9 criminal counts, including first-degree murder charges connected to Matthew's death. Prosecutors are pursuing a sentence that could keep her behind bars for life. The court denied bail, and she remains in custody awaiting trial. All contact between Jennifer and her sons and daughters has been prohibited. Meanwhile, her parents, Thomas and Rosalie, are facing charges connected to destruction of evidence. However, unlike Jennifer, they are currently awaiting trial outside of custody under strict court supervision. The legal proceedings have faced repeated delays. Defense attorneys continue fighting over procedural issues and are aggressively attempting to block the audio recordings from being admitted as evidence. And just recently, in May 2026, the court approved yet another postponement. The jury trial is now officially scheduled for December. Until a final verdict is reached, all family bank accounts and major assets remain frozen. But honestly, the most devastating part of this entire story is what happened to the 3 sons and daughters. In the span of a single day, they effectively lost both parents. The stable reality they knew collapsed because of the calculated decisions made by the adults around them. Right now, the sons and daughters are living with relatives while continuing to receive professional psychological support. And even after everything investigators uncovered, prosecutors are still facing one major problem. Matthew Johnson's body has never been found. Despite the blood-covered cargo carrier, cell phone records, surveillance evidence, and the recorded statements, large-scale searches across the marshlands failed to recover his remains. That missing piece has now become the core of the defense strategy. Their argument is simple. Without a body, proving the exact cause of death becomes dramatically more difficult in court. So what do you think? Will the evidence investigators collected be enough for a conviction? Or could the defense actually dismantle the case without the prosecution ever finding Matthew's body? Leave your theories down in the comments. If you found this investigation interesting, support the video with a like and subscribe to the channel. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again very soon.